Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Thank you so much for coming back at this early hour.
Yeah.
We'd like to get started. Thank you for your patience.
Yes. Welcome back for the last day of the BlackSpace Conference. We hope you enjoyed the last day and a half of wonderful discussions. And today we are looking forward to collaborating together on the case studies coordinated by the Just City Lab. Before we get started today, we wanted to give you a quick reminder to participate in the Real Talk exhibition. Photos will continue to be taken in the corridor adjacent to the conference registration tables today. On your chair walking in, you will have also received a postcard related to the Real Talk exhibition. These postcards will have questions such as, how do you create coalitions through design? And how do you resist through design? Feel free to fill out those postcards today and share your response, and then drop it off when you leave today so that your story can be incorporated into the exhibition.
So as a segue into this action-oriented discussion with the Just City Lab, we wanted to start considering what next steps we might take as designers, whether it be exploring new career path opportunities or exploring what coalitions we can build after this conference. So to kick us off, we're pleased to be sponsored in part by Enterprise Community Partners and are happy to have two of the organization's Rose Fellows join us today to talk about their current experiences and practice and a little bit more about the Rose Fellowship. So we're pleased to welcome Irene Figueroa Ortiz. She is actually an alum of the Graduate School of Design, the Master of Architecture, Master of Urban Planning programs. So lovely to have her back. Irene is currently in the second year of her fellowship at a Better City, which is a nonprofit organization committed to improve the quality of life and economic competitiveness of the greater Boston area through transportation, land development, and environmental initiatives. Her focus is on public realm planning, and she collaborates with the City of Boston to develop resources and policies that improve the implementation process for creative public realm opportunities. She will also be joined then by Kristen Chin. Her fellowship is actually a co-hosted fellowship by the Jamaica Plain Neighborhood Development Corporation and Urban Edge. And Kristen's current work centers around the development of Jackson Square, which is a strategic site in Boston that will serve as a transit hub and a central civic space for the city. Please welcome Irene and Kristen.
Hello. So good morning. So my name is Irene Figueroa Ortiz. I am Assistant Planning Director at A Better City. And this is my colleague, architectural designer, Kristen Chin, and she's project manager at both Urban Edge and Jamaica Plain Neighborhood Development Corporation. As Amanda just said, we are Boston-based Rose Fellows. I'm in my second year, and Kristen is in her first year, and we're just going to give you an overview of the fellowship program and a glimpse at the work that we're doing.
The Rose Fellowship pairs architects and landscape architects with community development and public space organizations across the country as we advocate for greater equity within the built environment. Fellows elevate design excellence, sustainability initiatives, and community engagement strategies within host organizations. And in turn, fellows soak up knowledge about policy and community development to become better designers. The fellowship is a 3-year paid position run by Enterprise Community Partners, a national affordable housing intermediary. Enterprise, the host organizations, and Rose Fellows work together to advance affordable housing, policy, and design excellence. It provides fellows funding, support, and time to take a deep dive into the community design field. Every fellowship is different, and the fellowship is a national network working in both urban and rural settings. With nearly 20 years of Rose Fellow alumni, we lean on each other for collaboration and resources.
So a common thread across fellowship is this intention of helping host organizations in the process of adopting inclusive participatory design and planning practices. As the speaker suggested yesterday, community engagement is not neutral. How you engage and where you engage defines who is able to join the conversation. And this is something we're really aware of at the Rose Fellowship family. And we're always looking for new and creative ways to engage residents and stakeholders in the development process. So as a result of this constant exploration, the Rose Fellows have developed and continue to develop toolkits and resources to support inclusive participatory design and planning approaches. Finally, the Rose Fellowship Program does not exist in a vacuum. It is aimed at supporting national efforts to make sure that community development is equitable and to expand the availability of sustainable, affordable housing in underserved communities. So now we're gonna just go really quickly and show you what we're doing.
Through the fellowship, I split my time between Urban Edge and Jamaica Plain Neighborhood Development Corporation. Both nonprofits have a long-standing history of working together, especially in the Jackson Square neighborhood. The organizations were formed out of the momentum in the 60s and 70s as resident opposition halted a federal highway extension. However, early construction bulldozed homes, shut down businesses taken by eminent domain, and severed utility, street, and sidewalk connections. Community activism helped redirect the highway funding to a rapid transit corridor and a linear park that links Jackson Square to downtown Boston. It's a major transit node, and you can reach Back Bay in 20 minutes via the train. Jackson Square is at the crossroads of Boston's Latin Quarter in JP and Roxbury, a historically African-American community. In both neighborhoods, we've seen shifting demographics and an increasing need for housing and community needs. Urban Edge, JPNDC, and a third community partner, the Community Builders, have been working on the redevelopment of Jackson Square for over 20 years. These sites are desirable due to their proximity to transit, but they are also filled with legal constraints, infrastructural hurdles, and contamination. We've held an extensive community engagement process, and after many fits and starts, the partnership has begun to complete several projects. When all is said and done, there will be a $250 million investment, over 700 new and rehab units, and 140,000 square feet of commercial space. The reach of both organizations extend to other parts of the neighborhood, and we feel a responsibility to work with the community to create an equitable JP in Roxbury. We're doing this through our partnership with the Boston Housing Authority on Mildred Haley Apartments. With the Housing Authority suffering a severe funding deficit, they've partnered with community developers to tackle the redevelopment. Through a phased strategy, a one-to-one replacement of existing public housing units and the construction of market rate units will occur. We're slated to begin a 2-year community engagement process, and we will work with the community to provide much-needed housing, open space, and street connections. Working in Jackson Square also involves significant infrastructural work. We're getting ready to relocate a sewer line before construction can begin on 2 affordable housing buildings. This involves a lot of coordination between the MBTA, Amtrak, and the Water and Sewer Commission so we don't impact existing infrastructure. The goal is to relocate the sewer and channel any remaining funds to a plaza and greenway that will connect the transit station to development sites along the corridor. Another project is a rec center with a skating rink on the ground floor and turf fields on the upper level to serve the 26,000 youth living within 1.5 miles of Jackson Square. We are working with program partners who will help us offer sports programming not usually afforded to low-income youth. Building rec centers and sewer lines are not in our wheelhouse. So my goal as a Rose Fellow is to understand enough to be dangerous and acknowledge what I don't know. This involves a lot of deep listening and reiterates to me that what we do as designers harkens back to people and the conversations we have and the interactions that define us.
So my host organization, Better City, is a business association committed to improving quality of life and economic vibrancy in Greater Boston through transportation, land development, and environmental initiatives. We operate between the private and public sectors using technical expertise and research capabilities to shape key policies and urban planning initiatives. At the core of my work there is to ensure that all our land development projects are in some way setting the foundation for public interest design work in Boston's neighborhoods. For the past 18 months, in collaboration with many wonderful partners, I have led a series of efforts to create systematic and structural changes to how Boston's public realm is regulated, funded, designed, and managed. We hope that these endeavors will lead to a more inclusive and accessible and vibrant public realm, public spaces and streets. So rather than creating better spaces by designing them, my fellowship projects are aimed at shaping all the forces that define directly or indirectly the parameters in which the traditional urban design and architectural professions operate. Regulations, urban policy, market forces, among others, play an important role in defining the quality and character of our streets and public spaces, and also the agency of the design professionals to transform positively those spaces. So my work is basically to get all those forces to blow wind under the sails of public interest urban design opportunities. And now I'm going to present 3 projects that intend to do that. So the first one is a project developed under the Public Realm Planning Study for Go Boston 2030. This is a project I'm serving as a project manager. I'm helping the city of Boston to develop placemaking programs and toolkits that could be used by community groups and local businesses to transform their streets. Part of this project has been to visualize a set of public realm regulations and in the process update and revise them. So through this process, special design considerations have been actively shaping urban policy. This is a confidential project, so that's why there's a placeholder from New York City right here, because I shouldn't be showing this. But just so you have an idea of one of my projects. An interesting fact that I learned through this project is that visualizing regulations have proven to be a great platform for interagency collaboration and coordination. Public space is regulated by almost every single department in City Hall. So this is an example of design language improving governance. So early this year, A Better City and the Massachusetts Smart Growth Alliance hosted Routes to Placemaking. This was a knowledge-sharing workshop that convened practitioners from different sectors of the state of Massachusetts interested in community-based placemaking. Attendees were people outside the design world trying to get their philanthropic institutions, public agencies, or community organizations to fund, support, or do community-based placemaking. So the goal of the event was to connect all these creative allies so they can become their own support system, and support each other and help each other advance their individual efforts. So support them so they can support us. And the last thing is, design sometimes is used to create this streetscape of exclusion, to drive away certain people, certain activities. And I often hear through this work that this is urban design used to reduce risk associated to liability, safety, or maintenance. And I keep asking myself this past 18 months, are there other ways, to address these concerns while keeping urban spaces inclusive and open to all? I don't have the answer, but that's why this fall we'll be working on our research on liability in public space with a multidisciplinary team that includes lawyers and city staff, real estate developers, people from different sectors, so we can kind of untangle this and try to understand it. So this is all from us. If you have questions about the Rose Fellowship, about our work, if you're interested in joining the program, please email us or reach out to us during lunch. We're happy to talk to you more. Thank you.
Did you take my sheet?
Did I take your notes? I did take your notes.
Thank you. All right, wonderful. All right, thank you again to Irene and Kristen. We're so happy to have Enterprise Community Partners sponsor us, as well as learn a little bit more about their opportunities. They're looking for people like the people in this room to be part of the fellowship program. So please reach out to them. When we talked, the Rose Fellowship, it's very unique as far as the different projects you can be part of. They've also, I believe, originally it was just around architecture, but there's also now landscape architecture opportunities and things too. So they're starting to expand kind of the projects as well as the opportunities and the community partners that you might have. So without further ado, I'm pleased to now give a short introduction to BlackSpace. Many of you perhaps participated in their facilitated discussion yesterday. That was where you grabbed breakfast this morning. And so we're pleased to welcome them back. They may have mentioned then, but I will now mention again that this New York-based group actually formed after they met in 2015 at the Black and Design Conference. Which, I mean, we couldn't be more happy, thrilled, excited that your origin story is tied so much to us, because that is what we hope to see come out of this conference, that this conference is only a starting point for new communities that will be formed, new connections that will be formed after you leave from this weekend. So they're going to be talking a little bit about that, as well as some of the recent projects and activities that they've been involved with in New York, which I've heard a lot of great things. And our hope is that this inspires you to challenge yourself to take advantage of this unique moment that we have together this weekend. It's been a long weekend, but I hope that it's been enjoying and engaging. And so now, without further ado, I'm happy to welcome just a few representatives of BlackSpace. I know there's many more of you in the room, but doing the presentation today is Emma, Jenna, and Kenyatta. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. We are so excited to be here. We're Emma, Jenna, and Kenyatta. And how many of you, just by show of hands, were here at the 2015 conference? Yeah. BlackSpace was here too. We just didn't know it at the time. What we did know was that individually we were the people that we had been looking for. And now, oh, the clicker, yeah. So now we are a collective of 25 professionals who span, we're all urbanists, spanning urban design, architecture, city planning, the arts, economic development, real estate development. And we have come together to deliberately break out of our professional silos to bring everyone to the table. So today we're going to talk a little bit about our origin story, kind of how we came together, what we've been up to, and so you'll hear a little more about that. And what we know is that traditionally architecture, urban planning, and design fields have often been wielded as tools of oppression, perpetuated injustice, reinforced inequality, and we recently learned that something like 71% of the urban planning profession in New York is white males. Look at all these beautiful faces. So what we realized is that in our professional lives, we're very devoid of the types of conversations that we had here at BlackSpace and the diverse and rich set of folks who were around those discussion tables. So we wanted to continue that, and we developed a core set of beliefs, and here they are. We tried to find what that common thread was between what we really felt deep down. We also asked ourselves, what did we want the world to look like after BlackSpace? If BlackSpace was perfect in its implementation, what would it look like? And this was the vision that we said we wanted to see. This was the world that we imagined. And all of this was developed truly by millennials. We got together for boozy brunch at Kenyatta's house. And over those brunches, we fell in love with each other. We had them every month. We shared our frustrations and dreams for our communities. It became a place of kind of collective self-care because of where we worked and the space that we had carved out. It became a space of freedom and a salve for us. Little did we know, oh, there's a picture of our brunches. Little did we know we were carving out BlackSpace.
So our monthly sessions, they've really ranged from like design thinking sessions. We've done like pitches to just recreational activities, supporting the Black-owned businesses in the neighborhoods that we live in. A lot of us live in Brooklyn, but there are some Harlemites in our group as well. In the Bronx, BX. So, I mean, we really found a group of this type didn't exist in New York City. I mean, just being here, I mean, Seattle, like finding out what you guys are doing in other groups, kind of building similar coalitions, it really inspires us. So if, you know, this exists where you guys are from, please find us and we can chat. So like I said, we created a coalition that essentially validated each other's experience. You know, being the Black designer in a community meeting on Brownsville, or the Black urban planner in a neighborhood meeting about a rezoning in East New York, a Black and Latino community. It was frustrating, right? But that frustration's one thing, and we knew we had to actually do something, right? Because we had this technical expertise in addition to cultural reference that we knew we could really kind of use to uplift our communities, but kind of just create some tangible products as well. So we knew that we couldn't be better planners, architects, or development professionals without co-creating with our communities, right? So that's what our people have always done. It's our power and it's our magic. All right. Let me use this clicker, okay. So we structure our work as a collective into 3 different groups intended to meet professionals where they are. So we have an advisory circle, working groups, and the general collective. So the advisory circle essentially provides administrative oversight and ensures that we're on track towards our goals. The working groups are made up of those leading major initiatives in the group, and the general collective kind of joins initiatives as they are available, comes to brunch, that sort of thing, participates in like our super busy Slack channel. So we've kind of existed without a hierarchy, right? There's no secretary, president, treasurer, anything like that. We kind of kept it intentionally fluid, but just really tried to make sure that we had our solid core, kept meetings consistent, communication consistent, and a base of essentially like casual activities in addition to project-based work, right? That kind of keeps things cohesive as well as productive. So, okay, sorry. So here, we actually were helping, our first project was a partnership with Made in Brownsville, which is a youth design firm founded by BlackSpace member Cordine, and GSD alum, so shout out to GSD. Okay, so this was at, so that was us kind of essentially helping Cordine with his storefront launch. So you see us like ripping up carpet, kind of helping with that whole process. And here we participated in a design charrette focused on community-based solutions and challenges that was really quite successful. So that's kind of our first project that we did last winter.
So after I take off my construction mask, so I'm going to chat about a few of our kind of other working group initiatives. So some of you might know this year the American Planning Association conference was hosted in New York. And as a part of the conference, a lot of social justice workshops were proposed but rejected magically. So 3 of us, Chris, Amina, and Justin, partnered with different planners planners of color from all over the U.S. To create this Spaces and Places of Protest event. And this event was something that happened during the conference and was kind of like an alternative space that you could go to. It was super successful. And so like we're really happy to report that the APA for their 2018 conference has decided to extend it and create a social justice thread. And we really believe that the success of this event helped them come to that decision. And moving on, we want to also think about, so actually building on the success of that one event, we have another BlackSpace member that kind of took the charge as a part of the APA Diversity Committee, Daphne, who is in the room, so please chat with her after if you're interested. And she really took that charge and decided, hey, her and the APA Diversity Committee, let's create a full conference about this stuff. And so this year in New York, she is co-hosting the Hindsight Conference, which is a conference that commemorates the 100th anniversary of the court decision to invalidate racialized zoning. And so we will be there. We'll be talking a little bit about some of our future projects, and we encourage you to attend if you're in New York. If you have any questions, please reach out to Daphne or see one of us and we'll connect you. So really quickly, I'm gonna jump here. So really what we started to see is, over these 2 years, we've been chatting a lot. We've had folks that have jumped out and picked up different work streams. There's a common thread about all the work that's been done. And that common thread is really heritage conservation. When we think about gentrification and what's happening in so many of the neighborhoods that we live in, there's kind of two verticals that we think about, and that's the physical displacement of people from their homes, but then there's also this erasure of culture and cultural spaces and norms that long established residents created. And so what we have realized is that as an interdisciplinary kind of collective, we feel like we can affect that second piece, that cultural erasure. But we're interested in now co-producing the preservation of that type of culture, that in cultural spaces and also norms, as a means of recognizing and affirming Black Brooklyn. We really believe that all of this kind of work can strengthen and our collective agency, both as BlackSpace and also the residents, as residents of all of these neighborhoods, really build a collective agency in the midst of redevelopment, climate, and economic pressures. So again, as we think about this new heritage conservation piece, it's really driven a lot of our work in the last kind of few weeks and months. So really quickly, wanted to just share, this is a picture of us working with Black Gotham, which is something we did last month. If you are in New York at any time, please Google Black Gotham and go do one of their tours. So they do tours of the lower financial district that are Afro-inclusive. A lot of times when you think about, you'd get the history of a state or a place, somehow magically the Black people are invisible in the history. And so they kind of really include and tell you about the beginnings of New York, but include how Black people were a part of that. So we did a mixer to bring Black professionals together, and also concluded in this over 50 people going on this walking tour and learning our history in this space. Most recently, a few of our members have picked up a work stream that is really about heritage conservation and thinking about how to work with youth in Bed-Stuy. And so as a lot of you probably know, Bed-Stuy is rapidly gentrifying. And so the work that we're doing here and our membership is really doing here is one, helping students get through, or helping young folks get through a history project to really understand and know all of the kind of the legacy of their neighborhood, both the built environment structures and also open spaces, but also through that start to get introductions to these fields of design, planning, and architecture. So always trying to work on this two-prong, getting people to these technical skills, but also creating some type of tangible project. And I think I'm done talking.
All right, so what's next for us? And it's a lot of work. So that's what this slide's supposed to represent, a lot of work that we have to do. We know that nothing in life is free, and we don't get paid for this. This is our total passion project of all 25 of us. And so we are currently looking at sustainable financial models.
So the BlackSpace offering collectors, could just move to the front, please. The baskets.
I don't know if that's sustainable, but maybe. So yeah, we're currently looking at nonprofit, for-profit, or social enterprise sort of models that can help us sustain, and also at fellowships, grants, innovation prizes, where we can, and we're also interested in meeting other great people who are doing this work, who are interested in this work, whether in New York or elsewhere. Obviously, we believe in the power of each other, so that collective community building and resource sharing is very important. So, if you envision a world where Black people, Black spaces, and Black culture matter and thrive, let's connect, and we encourage you to connect with each other.
So we just wanted to give folks a few minutes to ask BlackSpace a few questions, particularly as we all know you're coming back, going home soon, and we would love for them to reveal a little bit more about how you can perhaps do what they did, and hopefully you've met some people that you want to keep in touch with after the conference, whether digitally or in person.
Hi, my name is Kristen. I'm a current student here at the GSD, and I'm born and raised in New York City. I was wondering, to your last point about kind of formalizing the organizational structure, and I guess I was wondering, do you think, I mean, that's the next step, like, do you think you have to become like a sort of like organization, or maybe it's like possible to keep it informal, since there is this power in the sort of everyday and the informal kind of like brunch that you guys have?
I think that's a good question. It's something that we've kind of grappled with, but then there's like reality, right? So a lot of us are, no, like I'm just gonna keep it super real. So like a lot of us are, the reason why we come together is because we have these 9-to-5s or 8s, whatever, you know, however the long office keeps you. Those help us pay rent in New York City, which we all know is a thing. And that is like, really pulling us to realize like the work that we're doing here, a lot of us are becoming more, a little bit, like we're very encouraged by it and want to keep it going. And I think it's really the sustainability of that ties us to trying to create something formal. And when we say formal, I think it's more about having some paperwork and a bank account, right? So we can start to think about how can we monetize this work and support one another and get us to a point of, I think, another example collective that we encourage you all to look up is Assemble. They're in the UK, and they're a group of architects that came together and then now have been able to, after formalizing a little bit, they still have that fluidity. They've been able to do part-time work as their 9-to-5s, but then really be able to do the work of Assemble. And so I think that's like kind of ideally when we think about the future. There's some of us in that advisory group and some of the working groups that I think are interested in that. And so the structure part, I get you, we're gonna keep it fluid. It's still gonna be fun, but we just need to, you know, have a little bit of a status.
And just to add, I mean, the fluidity of it all and just the informality has been kind of the strength of our group, right? I mean, we literally started by having brunch. Like, I was making some muffins, Ifoma was making some sausages in the kitchen, and we just were talking about like, hey, this is what I experienced in my job, you know, which is so it's so healing, you know what I mean? To really go to these community meetings, especially living in New York City, especially living in Brooklyn, and going to the, like I'm talking about, like East New York, Brownsville, and you are the only planet, like you are that's it. And you have the residents who are like, don't bring that little black girl up here talking about whatever, you know? And I think like to be able to have a space to come back to, it's been remarkable. And I think has made at least my job to be transparent. Like, I can deal with what I have to deal with on the 9-to-5 because I know I have this community that kind of gets it.
Hi, my name's Armani. I don't have an org. I'm from Artistry Humanity, but I'm 16, so that's me. Yay, GPAs. And I forgot what you call it. I'm gonna call it your goal. You mentioned black assets. I was wondering what you consider to be black assets.
Yeah, I would say that's an evolving question. At our Black Gotham event that we had, similar to the way that we kind of sourced questions from folks here at the lunch, we sourced questions from folks at that Black Gotham Mixer event. What are black assets? And a lot of people talked about culture as being one of our strongest black assets that should be something that is preserved and conserved for us. So I think culture is a big one. I think that we talked about in 20 years, yeah, I think the question was like in 20 years, what resources would black people control? Do you remember the other answers to that? I feel like a lot of it was around culture, collectivity. I think we also, just even in the ways we think about how to make this sustainable, we know economics is a big piece of that, and how do you retain Black agency over place, over economic power? How do you build advocacy and agency? So I think we're seeing some of those things emerge to the top, but we're still openly sourcing for answers like that. What do people consider Black assets? What is important to conserve and protect and grow? So any ideas you have, you can talk to us.
We'll have time for 2 more questions, I think.
Stephen, yesterday on the panel for the futures panel, the kind of Afro designing the future, asked a question that I imagine your group would be super intelligent about and already maybe asking within your collective because it's across disciplines. And that was the question of design as something that we register in terms of the social justice and the ambitions that we have around something like, preserving our culture, our history, right? And that then there's also the kind of way of critiquing design that maybe happens more often in architecture schools, right? Around aesthetics, performance, geometry, whatever it is. How in your group, how has BlackSpace kind of answered or theorized that is it something that comes up in terms of the relationship between planning and architecture, or something that you've been able to work on in terms of, understanding design as cultural practice?
Wait, sorry. I'm trying to make sure I understand it. Okay, good. The critiquing the fields that we're in versus, I think I've missed with the question.
So the panel yesterday, the last panel on the design futures, brought up this question of the imaginary, right? Because there's the difference between the future and the imaginary. Mm-hmm. And the first question on the panel was about how we, within the terms that we're working on design, I think a lot of our ambitions are within the realm of the imaginary and the aesthetic and the political already being synthetic, right? Whereas in many institutions, it's one or the other. Like the APA says no social justice, or your typical architecture conference will be, aesthetics and social justice will be in 2 different rooms. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, to the extent that the cultural matter is part of what is in the manifesto, the kind of mission statement of the group, how have you been working on or thinking about the cultural matter in terms of the design, maybe at the more architectural scale?
Got it. Okay. Good question. Took me a long time because I would sleep really late last night. All right. I think so. That's a little bit. So one thing that we kind of, if we're talking about heritage conservation and that being important to us and kind of this next work stream, I think it connects to what you're saying. So one thing we've we're kind of still brainstorming, and it's still a conversation in those Slacks and at brunches, is like making this tangible, right? And how do we, I think kind of like the point you're making is like, if we're saying culture matters, right? And how do you then make that tangible for people, and how do you build it into some of these more physical kind of projects that we hope to put up? And one thing that we're realizing, there's so much Black culture in Brooklyn and the Bronx and Harlem that that is like kind of, it's not tangible, right? And it's ephemeral. It's a block party. It's the folks that are like playing chess at the park. But in thinking about design, I think my easiest example right now is going back to those folks that like playing chess at the park, right? So right now there's like a stop off in Bed-Stuy that these old gentlemen, they play chess. If we think about like DOT redoing that plaza to what some of these ladies were talking about, there's so many people that can influence the design of that, the redesign of that plaza. The missing piece to us is like preserving what the cultural practices that are happening there now, so that designs, to the kind of slide that and the Enterprise Fellows had that slide around public space with the different benches. How do we design the bench to make sure that chess can still happen, right? Because we can easily, like that's kind of like when we think about design and architecture, it's so important to make sure that we're all talking to each other and at the table, because then you can influence how that is then designed and built to ensure that when you redo that, we don't make a cute bench that now don't have a table, and so now old men don't have nowhere to play chess, right? And because I think that's the point, and that's how I'm taking like what we're looking toward in terms of making that tangible, making it real.
I think also in our structure, we're trying to break out of these, like, a lot of it is about how we come together to even be able to think about the structures that we exist in. So that collective model of a circle is like not the way that we traditionally think about how to design things. So I think we're being very intentional about the process of how we come together. And I also think that we've struggled a lot, like Kenyatta said, with the tangible piece. And so how do you enliven histories through sort of happenings? How do you bring in these artistic activations and happenings that preserve culture in place, that bring people together to build sort of like a resiliency amongst people and agency and getting to know your neighbors as a way to mitigate against sort of economic pressures, so that it's not always necessarily in the built environment, especially in heritage conservation. It's all about buildings, it seems, and they're really like interested and intrigued by us because we're like, oh, people, like we're talking about people and culture and how you conserve that, you know? So I think even making those shifts and being vocal on those issues, that culture is also important, and obviously in conversation with the built environment, but how do you think through that is something we've spent a lot of time trying to sift through and be actionable towards.
And just one other thing, I think even though this kind of exists as a like passion project almost, like Kenyatta said, we do have these 9-to-5s. Many of us are working in government in fields that like directly influence a lot of the projects that we're seeing come up in these neighborhoods, right? So I think if the more that we do this brainstorming with each other and go out and do these community-facing projects, we can say in a list of community principles, right? Like people, this bench or this park means something to people, right? Because sometimes you have these developers come in and they're like, let's put a dog run here, or let's put, you know, like just all of these things that like people don't want to see that, right? It's like, so I think that's been really, or they might, right? But I think what's important is that we have these experiences and these conversations that we can take back into these fields, right? Like I mean, some of us are in the arts, but a lot of us are working in government in our group. So we can take this stuff back and say, hey, we're doing this work and this is what we've heard, in a different way that's not as like outside of the bureaucracy of working in government, right? So it's been helpful.
Hi, Chandra, first-year master's student in urban planning here. So I had a question about your work stream and like how you identify need. So is this like a door-to-door surveying of Black businesses? Is this crowdsourcing on Black Twitter? Like, how are you identifying kind of the needs in the projects?
That's good. Do you want to go?
I mean, I think again, like our power really is in with our like collective, right? I mean, you have people like Cordine, he's working, I don't know, you know, he's doing some really cool stuff for Made in Brownsville. And his perspective into that community is going to tell us something different than like what I would see in my day job in a needs assessment or something, right? So I think like just really, I mean, this Slack, I'm not kidding, it's very active. So it's like current events, articles of interest, shout outs, right? Because some of us are doing really great things. And I think it's just, we're kind of sourcing need through our network that we're developing, for sure. And coming to conferences like this, I mean, I'm still taking it in, just everything that I've heard over the last 2 days, so that I can go back and do my homework as well.
The only thing I would add on that is just that we live in these neighborhoods, right? And we have these neighbors and landlords and friends that are there. And those kind of everyday conversations, I think, stem and start and spark some of our conversations of like, oh, that's a need, right? Like my neighbor said that it's really annoying that, you know, this is happening, or like so-and-so is getting pushed out of this. And so I think those conversations, because again, we're focusing on spaces where we live first, that helps us, that informal conversation. And then because of the technical skill that we have through folks like working in these government things, we can then try to do or then do these formal needs assessments, right? And so I think but that first initial spark is that we live there and that we're a part of the communities. It's not an idea that we're going into these, this is where I live.
Thank you so much, BlackSpace. And I'm sure that if you have any more questions, please look them up over lunch. Like I said, they're just these three ladies are just part of a larger group, and I think there's about 12 of you all in the audience. So, and I have noticed one thing: there are many people that are anxiously waiting to also come into the room. So please come in. If everyone kind of condense, squeeze in, let people, so that we can get started with some information about the workshop. Thank you. If everyone could please quiet down a little bit so we can go ahead and get started, because we don't want to spend our time standing here talking in front of you. We want to have you spend your time in the workshop talking with each other. So to introduce the program and the format of the workshop today, I'd now like to welcome to the podium Tony L. Griffin. Tony is also a professor in practice of urban planning right here at the Harvard Graduate School of Design, where she teaches and develops value-based planning methodologies through the Just City Lab. Tony is the founder of Urban Planning for the American City, based in New York. Through the practice, Tony served as project director for the Detroit Work Project Long-Term Planning Initiative and released Detroit Future City, a comprehensive citywide framework for urban transformation. Formerly, Ms. Griffin was a professor of architecture and the founding director of the J. Max Bond Center on Design for the Just City at the Spitzer School of Architecture at the City College of New York. Founded in 2011, the center's work focused on the Legacy City Design Initiative, Just City Design Indicators Project, and inclusion in architecture. So please welcome to the podium, Tony.
All right, let me get my props all together here. I wanted the lights up because I really wanted to see everybody. I'm so moved, I'm so impressed, I'm so optimistic. I want to be a part of BlackSpace, even though I'm not a millennial. But here's the thing, I have the same story. So I was thinking about Mabel, when she got up, and she's just like, wow, this is really awesome. Like, back in our day, like, it would have been like these 5 people, right? I was one of 2 African-American associate partners at SOM 20 years ago, worldwide. I'm often still the only black girl in the room. So our stories are kind of the same. The only difference is you have each other in a much more robust way than Mabel and I did. And it's always kind of interesting, Mabel, I don't know if you go through this, like, I don't know what group I fit in. Like, I'm not civil rights, I'm not quite Gen X, I'm certainly not a millennial. We came up with the folks that created hip hop, but I don't know if we're quite, hip hop. And like we just don't, I don't know about you, but I always feel like I don't really know where I'm sitting. So I'm trying to spread across everybody here and be an interpreter for all. So I'm super excited to have you here. And I'm also very reflective. I am in a space of reflection. I have enough of a body of work to kind of still reflect and kind of put that out, but still be incredibly optimistic. And I really cannot stress enough how inspired I felt with each and every speaker that stood up yesterday. And just seeing you all here in this building just warms me. But because I've been in this reflective space and because I have been practicing 20 plus years, when I created the Bond Center, or was asked to be the founding director of the J. Max Bond Center at City College of New York, I named it Design for the Just City because I had had a body of work practicing as an architect in a corporate firm. I made a switch to go into public sector. As a planning deputy director in Washington, D.C. I was Cory Booker's first planning director. And I was looking back going, I'm always in these spaces where I'm trying to talk about, and I'm always talking about the same conditions of injustice in every single city. I'm from the south side of Chicago. I live in Harlem. So I'm always in that space. That's my personal space, and that's my professional space that I've chosen to take action, right? Always the same issues, and I'm trying to lend my expertise to these challenges, and now I'm sort of going, okay, have I made a difference? Have I really kind of made a difference? And if I did, how would I know? And so this is also at a time where we're talking about resiliency indicators and sustainability indicators and designing for equity, and I would ask people, well, what is equity? And we're still trying to work that out. So this notion of language, expanding our language, challenging whether or not what we're doing is making an impact, trying to provide some evidence for what that is, and to really continue to promote optimism and aspiration is why I created Design for the Just City and brought that here to the GSD at the Just City Lab. So we have a website, designforthejustcity.org, where we have collected the body of work that I've done over the last 5 years, both at City College and out here. We have the Just City Essays, which is the collection of essays where I just asked 26 people, well, what's the Just City? So it represents 5 countries, 22 cities from around the world. And we are so happy to preview with you the Just City Index. So I'll talk about that in really just a second. But I would like to take a few minutes and just sort of offer you my reflections on some of the language that I heard today that offered new inspiration to me, and I think intersects with the work that we're going to ask you to do later this morning. Hamza Walker told us that art is a means to understand the present. He said race is a value system, and I kind of asked him, can we change that value system? And I think some of what I want you to think about this morning is asking you that. Sekou Cook, deconstructed and reapplied our cultural products, and is asking us to consider the authentic things with which we produce, very much like the BlackSpace was talking about culture as the Black asset, and how do we start to embed that asset in the way we think about design. Brandon Bowe gave us the language of vulnerability, and the way he uses the vulnerability of his personal experience through his work, and I think inspired me to not be afraid to do that. When we're trying to find our voice. Courtney Carbone sort of showed us and sort of pointed out the stress of the everyday microaggression, and that we don't really feel that stress so much, very viscerally, but then in the moment where you're standing in the room taking hits and a bullet from a community meeting, all that sort of bubbles up and comes out. Afro Flow Yoga told us that the grid was made to make us feel segregated, and the circle is designed to make us feel included. And Sharon, by the way, when we revealed this curtain, you will see we have deconstructed the grid for our discussion. Walter was excited to be in a room with no tension, right? So we're in a room where we're not the only Black chick in the room, and that is really fucking cool, right? Really cool. And you do feel like you're, a little bit easier. You can let your hair down. He told us every project has to have a strangeness, right? And we should challenge ourselves to embed that. And maybe that strangeness is the Black asset. Maybe that strangeness is the Black culture. Sharon told us that a crisis can either be used to move towards resiliency and recovery, but if we're not thoughtful, it can just be a replacement and a continuation of chronic dysfunction. Diane told us that the right people to be in the room are the people who live the problem. And a little later on, we kind of heard a little bit of a debate about that, but they certainly have to be at the table. Antoinette told us that racial equity is when outcomes are no longer predicted by race. Roger Bernard Agard had the bomb poem to his daughter Nina that said Stuyvesant Heights used to be Bed-Stuy. That family with a stroller used to be Black. Those young people on the stoop over there used to be Black and Puerto Rican and arrested for being on the stoop. That school used to be public, and this used to be Brooklyn. All right. Mabel and Mario told us that the struggle creates poetic action, and that they use history to talk about race and to make that real. Ingrid used love and the notion of connectivity, and they were essential in her campaign strategy. And this woman ran for mayor of a major city. You got to give that up. King told us, until you own your own, you cannot be free. And D. Ray had so many lessons. Freedom is not only the absence of oppression, but the presence of justice and joy. And this notion of talking about how values are more embedded in our work than the outcomes is exactly what we're going to ask you to do this morning. And he also told us that we're at the table to make sure the truth is present. So that's where we have to be fearless. Your voice, your experience is authentic. And you need to register that without fear. He also told us that designers need to tell us and show us how to see differently. So he gave us the challenge, right? We're all here as designers. So I went to bed last night feeling so optimistic by all of these words and languages that I heard. But then, I wake up in the morning, I turn on the news, and I feel the assaults again, right? So every day, is this kind of assault. So, who is really the just city for? And who's in a position to do the work to create the just city? In the article I wrote that my just city is black and white, I reflected on my experiences growing up in a segregated south side of Chicago and always being that one. And then over the course of my career, finding ways to embed, who I am in the over discussions of my work. So we are a room filled of people who are both who the just city is for and who can enact the just city. So I have a little experiment before I launch us into our workshop. I need the Black brothers to stand up. So beautiful. I need one of our organizers to record this. Come take some pictures behind me, please. I need the women in this room to stand up. If you are a proud member of LGBTQ, I need you to stand up. If you are a person who practices a religion that is not Christianity, please stand up. If you are a person in this room that lives in this country but was not born in this country, I could call you an immigrant or a German, please stand up. You are the people who live in fear in this country every day through a microaggression or through some form of American terrorism that is happening every day. You are who the Just City is for. Now, if you're a designer in this room, stand up. This whole room should be standing up right now. Put your fist in the air. Walter, D. Ray, Sharon, Antoinette, and Courtney asked us to be disruptors, so say, I am a disruptor. I am a disruptor. They told us to be transgressive. I will be transgressive. I will be transgressive. Sharon told us we need to work cross-disciplinary and be problem-solving savvy. I will be a cross-disciplinary problem-solving fool. And D. Ray told us to see hope as work, not magic. So say, I see hope as work, not magic. I see hope as work, not magic. Got that picture? All right. Thank you. Okay, so here's what we're going to do this morning. We have designed in our Just City lab, and let me take this opportunity to thank, this lab here at the GSD is only about a year old, so let me take a moment to thank my first researchers, Carolyn Lauer, Mayu Takeda, Natasha Hicks, Megan Venable-Thomas, and Milan Outlaw. This list of researchers is growing. This lab is not going anywhere. We have created the Just City Index. You each have this in your bag, and behind this curtain, we're going to ask you to workshop this index. We want you to play with it for the next hour and a half, critique it. Its goal is to expand the language we use to articulate what it means to have a just city, not just relying on something called equity, something called sustainability, something called resiliency. Because those frames typically come with a definition, and they ask you and your community to fit it. This index of 50 values asks you to take those 50 values into your community and have your community craft a manifesto for what it means to be just for them. It's for us to use to talk about what it means for us in our work, and it's for you to use with your constituents to ask them what they mean. And I bet you'll come up with 2 different lists. and then to use this as a way to develop a narrative, develop a language that allows them to both assess how injustice is happening in a community, but more importantly, as an aspiration to move towards the kind of outcomes they want in the community, which is not just, I want a grocery store and affordable housing units. I think we want a bit more than that. And so that was the strategy behind us creating this index. So we have some of our presenters from the last day and a half and some other volunteers who've volunteered to enter their work into an hour-and-a-half discussion. We've asked each of them to look at their projects, help us understand what some of the urban challenges were that they were confronting, the design tactics and goals that they use, but to specifically look at our index and identify the values that they think they were trying to achieve. They're going to engage you in a conversation, take your questions and feedback, and just kind of see, how did that work out? Do you see other values that perhaps that project was trying to address? How well they did it? We're then going to ask you to workshop with them a way to evaluate that, an actual metric. So let's say someone wanted to create more connectivity, but specifically social connectivity. On a project we worked on in New York around New York City's public space, we did a survey to ask people in some of those public plazas you talked about, since the plaza has been built, do you see different people than you saw before, part A? Part B, have you made new relationships by being in that space? That's social connectivity, right? Not just the lip service of, we now have a more diverse plaza. Right? So we're trying to cut away some of that and get to the real heart of sustainable justness. So let me read the projects that are going to be behind this curtain. You get to self-select into the table that you would like to meet with. And as I call the name of the project, if the presenters can stand up so you can familiarize yourself with who will be there. And then when you get to the table, they will help walk you through a conversation. There's also going to be a question at the end of that that asks you to reflect on your work or your city. Ask you to pick the 5 values that are most aspirational to you in your work in your city. And to also give us an action, something you think you can do over the next 12 months to help move the needle on that. We're going to ask you to take a picture of it, take it home with you. We're going to keep it for our archives. And when we come back in 2019, we're going to talk more about the work you're doing. So let me read the projects, and then we'll break and go in. And Natasha, Mayu, Carolyn, let me know if there's anything I've forgotten to say. So we have Sharon Sutton, who's going to be talking about It Takes a Village, Re-envisioning Foster Care in New York City. And this is a project in East Harlem, New York. East Harlem, New York, yeah? Okay. Okay. Matthew Mazzotta, who's a Loeb Fellow this year, is going to be presenting Storefront Theater in Lyons, Nebraska. Now, you might not think Lyons, Nebraska has any Just City issues, but I bet you they do. Eric Williams is going to be presenting Silver Room Sound System Block Party from Chicago. Stan, where are you? Come on up, come front. Everybody come to the front so they can see you. Come in front of the screen. Joanna Gilligan, is going to be presenting Grodette Youth Farm from New Orleans. Come on in, don't be shy. Diane Jones-Allen is going to be presenting Gordon Plaza from New Orleans. Come on down. Kimberly Driggins is going to be presenting City of Detroit Grand River Northwest Neighborhood Planning Framework. Ingrid LaFleur is going to be talking more about Detroit through her Detroit Digital City. Justin Garrett Moore is going to be talking about Spofford Peninsula Mixed-Use Development in New York. Antoinette Carroll is going to be talking about the Creative Reaction Lab, St. Louis. Joaquin Garrett's going to be talking more about Africatown, Seattle. Ifoma Ebo is going to be talking about, a member of BlackSpace, is going to be talking about neighborhood activation, crime prevention through community design and problem solving in the Bronx. Alex Marchinsky is going to be talking about Pittsburgh Eco-Innovation District in Pittsburgh. Sekou Cook is going to be talking about Ivy City Redux in Washington, D.C. Mario Gooden and Mabel Wilson are going to be talking about Afro-Imaginaries in Zimbabwe. Dana McKinney is going to be introducing her work from Newark, New Jersey, Societal Simulations, a Carceral Geography of Restoration. That's code word for prisons. And Caesar McDowell is going to be talking about Boston, Go Boston 2030. Okay? So pick your poison, pick the kind of topic you want to discuss. Go forward and index. Thank you. Thank you all for your generous conversation and contribution to this experiment. It looks really, really good. This has been a great conference just from the perspective of we've let the conversations go where they needed to go. And we didn't really weren't a slave to time. But now we may have to be a little bit because I know people have to get home and they're going to kick us out probably. So instead of us going through each of the 16, we just wanted to kind of put them back into the space for everyone to enjoy. As I said before, we are trying to posit whether having a vocabulary like this enables us to have the kind of conversations we want to have in our communities with ourselves to expand and enrich the form of justice we seek through our design work. My intention was also for this to be used by you, but also by the community, and for perhaps you to become trainers and educators of the communities you work in to help build their vocabulary and the ways in which they talk about their desires, their interests, their challenges and aspirations. And I was really struck by DeRay saying, look, I can tell you what my problem is really easy. I can tell you what I don't like and all that stuff, but it's not that easy for me, to sort of say, this is what I want it to look like, or this is the form it's in. And so for me, this was a way of helping to build a vocabulary within the communities we talk to so that we can have more of a dialogue and a shared language. And so, we start with these 50. Some folks started to nuance and reshape the language, and that's what we want you to do. And we want you to go back into your spaces and build the kind of Just City manifesto that is relevant to you, where you are in your context regarding the issues you have. So we do have a little bit of time for some reflection. And so if there's any group or person that would like to speak to and just dial us into the kind of conversation you had about your values and your metrics, or talk about their own personal reflection, we do have time for a few people to do that. So are there any volunteers? Eric.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, Eric. Are we doing, yeah, we heard that before. Are we doing mics for this part of the program? Anybody? Hello? If not, you just have to use your cheerleader voice. Right. Okay.
I've been using my cheerleader voice the whole time, that's why I started. I was also struck by DeRay's comment that you will never get an immediate feedback loop.
Mike, stop talking, they're gonna give you one. Because I think we're recording.
Right.
There you go.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, Eric.
I work for the man.
How are you?
I work for the man.
Yes, we heard that before.
I said I was moved by the idea of when DeRay said that you're not going to always get immediate feedback, and so in our thing in Nebraska, where we're doing like living rooms outside, it may be that a kid who goes to a session now at 5 is inspired to be the mayor at 35. Yep. And you can't really track that because that's a memory and sort of so longitudinal, it's almost outside the scope of how we think. Yeah. So it's a balance, or maybe it's an intention that always has to be happening. Another line that says, you may have a long-term impact. As we're thinking about the 500-year climate change and a 30-year plan, we may need a time axis to go along with these indicators to make us think about it takes a long time to change some of this stuff.
Yeah, thank you for that comment, because I think if we agree to use metrics as a form of evidence sort of building, I think we also have to commit to a process that allows us to collect and track that over time, because the longitudinal data is what's important. So right now, your metrics might just be tracking the ages of people who participate in the living room, right? And sort of building a diversity and sort of a cross-generational conversation about that. And then over time, sort of tracking, how that evolves. So thank you for that. Any other reflections, comments? How did it work? How didn't it work? What did you learn? So Alex and then Mark.
Yep. Okay. So one thing that we spoke a lot about for our Pittsburgh Eco Innovation District was the idea of trust and honesty and building that in a community before you obviously go and start proposing certain ideas. And we were talking about how we can come up with a metric for that, how we can, and maybe that's part of that is trying to understand this the mediation of trust between the local government and the people, and as designers, we're usually put into that position. So trying to come up with a way that you could track if people are continuing to have conversations with their local government after you've already enacted your plan. That was one way we've been talking about it, or apps that are already being used in communities where you can suggest improvements to physical infrastructure or other things as well. I think
Great.
Good
Thank
conversation.
you.
Yeah.
I'm going to pass that down to Mark, and then Sekou. Don't turn the mic off anymore. Just pass it on.
I was in Alex's group as
Can you
well.
stand up?
Hi, Tony.
Hi, Mark.
So just to piggyback on Alex's statement, we, I think, added honesty as a
Oh, yeah, that is a new one. Thank
metric.
you. Okay.
And we debated where to put it, so I think it ended up in engagement.
Okay.
But sort of the honesty, well, one,
Thank you.
that just announcing the plan is already setting a power dynamic. And we talked about, is there something you do before you say there's going to be a plan? And then just honesty about things like jobs might be created, but they might not be a job for you, but
or in
more
that
jobs for the city,
neighborhood,
or more affordable housing. And so just being honest about some of the metrics around
So for me, that related maybe to our metric of transparency. Were there any groups that talked about transparency? Yeah, so I think those two kind of go hand in hand. And I know Sharon's group talked about some different values too, but let's go to Sekou, and then maybe someone from Sharon's table can talk, and then up here. Yeah,
Hi,
Sekou.
Tony.
Hi, Sekou.
Sekou Cook, Syracuse University.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. So
it is for the record, so
just for the
that
record,
was good.
for the audio, for posterity. So we added a couple values as well in our group. I was just struck by the process that allowed me to bring a project from school, like a student project from a project that we did with Eric in DC, and give a kind of second life to this project, or actually think about it a little bit more deeply. And often in studio we just kind of pin these projects up. You have students work on it for an entire semester, and they get 10 minutes of feedback on it, and they get driven to tears sometimes. and then it just disappears. Then they tear it off the wall, and it goes into the trash. And now we get to have it to be the basis of a broader conversation about just values and so forth. I thought that part of it was really great for me to see the second life.
Wonderful, thank you. Anyone from Sharon's group want to, up there, and then over here, and then I'll come back to you, Filma. So if there's another mic, I need it on my left side.
Come on, girls. I'm the first girl speaking right now.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, come on, stand up. Let's talk about it. So I'm in Sharon's group. I'm extremely excited about it. It's about the foster care system. I have experience with it. That's the reason why I am here doing my doctoral dissertation. And so I am very glad that the factor child in extreme adversity is being brought up to a design context, because that is something I face as a challenge every single day in this, the most progressive, supposed to be school in the world. And so it's extremely important. So my statement here is that conversations like that are brought in studios in design schools, and not be like stuck to, oh, let's build another incredible design, whatever, rhinoceros, imagetic context of what architecture should be like, because there are people on the ground there that are living in structures that are designed by architects and are causing a lot of states of mental illness and vulnerability and toxic stress. So let's pay attention to that. So thank you so much for bringing that. And that is part of a Just City too. So one of the values we brought is growth, human development, child development.
Great.
That should be considered too.
Thank you. Well, thank Dr. Sutton for introducing that. And, you know, in the space I'm working in too, I'm increasingly getting more public health students taking my coursework. And so to the organizers of this conference, as we start to think about the outreach of who comes, you know, this cross-disciplinary work around urban contextual issues really does require, I think, that expertise to join us. We had a comment reflection here.
Yeah, so I thought a lot about the acceptance category and how I kind of feel like we need to even go further than acceptance and tolerance. This idea of having these moments where people's human dignity and they're actually, it's resonating within them that they're actually human beings. I feel like that's part of what we're coming up against, is that people will say, I'm not racist or I do tolerate, but what's missing is like seeing you as another human being that is just as valid, just as worthy, just as beautiful. And so I think in the project that we were looking at, which had to do with like, how do we have spaces for restorative justice? People have come out of prison. Where can they transition into their new life outside of prison? And so it was neat to see that spaces were thought about as these moments where people's dignity could be affirmed. So yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Ifeoma, you had a comment.
Yeah, so one comment that really struck me in our conversation, and I'm not sure if the sister's here, but she was really challenged by the definition of empowerment, that it is defined as to give power or authority, but that if we see it in that definition, it can be problematic, and it can reinforce race, class, and gender-based hierarchies, and that it's not about giving power, but really seeing the power that's already evident there and building capacity so that people can really realize the power that they already have and act on it and use that power.
Great. Thank you for the feedback on that. And then Sharon behind you. And then we'll take one last comment, I think, before I need to turn it over to Natasha.
A girl, please.
Did you say girl, please?
Girl.
Oh, okay. All right, then.
So we didn't talk.
Yes, madam.
She didn't count.
I know.
So we didn't talk about this.
That's my mentor. When I was you all's age, I picked up this book and read an essay by a black female scholar. I had never had a black female scholar in my entire life, and that woman influenced me. So as you were saying,
we didn't talk about this. We modeled it, which is the Gandhi phrase: "Be the change you want to be." You want to see that we had a very small table, and it was a table that had a lot of expertise at it. I had an idea of how we were going to do the conversation, and they had a different idea. So I went with their idea.
So yeah, Christina
Right.
had her hand up, so we'll give her the last.
And so, you know, there's somebody who's going to be deciding whether these values are realized in a project. And let's just, I don't know what to call that somebody, the beer, the actor, that person or that agency has to be these things. You have to be the justice that you're trying to achieve, or you're not going to achieve it for your project.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Christina. And then I am going to give the last comment to Shani. No, you're going to get the last one. You want to go before the last one? Just kidding. No. You have the honor of being the last one.
Hi, my name is, it's Kristen.
Kristen,
I don't,
I'm
it's okay, I've been called Christine before. So I was, in Sharon's group, and I think one of the things that we started, begin to realize when we were talking about like children in foster care was that all of these values, safety and participation, belonging, and growth and community were all things that we want as adults as well. And so it's like, when we're thinking about for children, it's like, oh, well, we need these as adults too. And then we began to like really think about, okay, well, it's sort of this idea of like sanctuary that embodies like the safety and participation because all of these like phrases start to already have they already have these definitions. And again, we kind of have to like maybe come up with a different word. And the other main thing was about this idea of metrics and being able to measure like, oh, how do we begin to measure safety? Right? It's and I think it's not so much about like numbers or statistics. I think a lot of it is about just like the narratives that kind of grow out of it. And I could almost imagine like I guess, like a kind of metric or report that is actually sort of like a tag cloud almost of kind of ideas that kind of grow out from these movements and these sort of all these conversations. It's like, it's not about like, okay, well, they stayed X amount of years in school, so that must mean they're doing better. Yeah. But no, it's like, it's almost like instead of receiving the grade, it's the whole report card where it's like this is a story. This is narrative. And I think it's also kind of ties into like, the values of this conference, and that it's about like this kind of, it's about this conversation, and it's about like real talk and, and stories.
Part of the way we need to figure out how to do metrics is to, how do we capture the experience of the end user of what we design, right? So one of the studies that we did that's on the Design for the Just City website, which is called Public Life and Urban Justice in Public Space, is combined with the statistical data. We did a lot of survey work, and we did a lot of observational survey work where we as designers would go and observe how people use the space, and then we would talk to people how we use the space. And so in our notion of building an indicator framework different from resiliency and sustainability is that you've got to combine those other two platforms of gathering information to truly understand kind of the impact of the work.
Hello? Oh, thanks. I wanted to come. Hi, everyone. I'm Shani Carter. I graduated from the urban planning program a year ago, and I work in New York. It was less a comment about the values and indicators themselves, but more a comment about the process and kind of understanding how defining the values up front and like the aspirational values that our group had. We were the Ivy City Redux project in DC. So defining the aspirational values and the ones that we thought were inherent within the project started to change how we thought about the project itself, and even the spirit of the project with it being hip hop architecture, and like how would we invert this as opposed to thinking of it from a top down perspective? How do we kind of come from bottom up to make sure that we are incorporating inclusivity or diversity, or like what does it really mean to have a safe space for these people? And how do we think about the power dynamics in that way? So that was my main observation, was just defining these values up front allowed us to then shape the project in a way that we wouldn't have before.
Yeah, that is a great way to end this experiment. Thank you all so very much for participating. I really appreciate it. Oh, Sekou.
Hi, everyone. This is kind of an impromptu thing. Something that I really forgot to say yesterday that I really meant to say is I wanted to plug that I'm on the search committee this year for Syracuse University School of Architecture, and we're currently having a search for 2 positions. This is how we get the word out there through our networks to actually diversify faculty across the country. We're always looking for diverse faculty, and the excuse is always we don't have enough in the pool. So we want to broaden the pool as much as we can, and I'm using this platform to do that. And hopefully you'll then use your own platforms to let people know about these faculty positions, because at one level, I'm just kind of tired of being the only black person on the faculty. We just need more voices from all levels, more students, more faculty, more people in positions of power and influence, and just spread the word. Thanks.
So I'm Laura Snowden. I'm the Dean of Students at the GSD. Yeah. I feel very lucky to have that position here. I've been here a long time, and amazing, amazing students. So I feel really honored to have been part of this community this weekend. And it's just an incredibly important and special conference, and I've never felt the warmth in Piper, not the temperature, but just, I mean that too, but just the warmth and the power in this room that I felt, well, rarely have felt. Last Black in Design was great too. Just wanna, Anyway, but I know that many of you students, staff, and everyone were involved in planning this and executing. I saw a lot of people this weekend, but I would like to, sorry, I'm doing this a little awkwardly, I would like to honor the 5 main organizers. So if you guys, I'll say your names, I'm just trying to get these flowers out. Okay, anyway, Natasha Hicks, Amanda, I'll say all their names, and if you could just wait and then clap, okay. Otherwise, we're going to be clapping and you won't hear me say anything. Amanda Miller. Okay, never mind. Okay. Marcus Mello. Chanel Williams. Okay, the extra one. And Armando Sullivan.
Well, thank you all so much for attending this year's Black in Design conference. And we wanted to wish you a safe travel home. On your way out, please remember to drop off your Real Talk postcards at the exhibition wall and take a photograph if you haven't done so. Also, don't forget that your name card will also grant you free access to Harvard Art Museums today. The museums are only a block away, south of the building on Quincy Street. And meeting you all has been just such an absolute pleasure, and it's really been an honor to be with these 5. And it's just been a wonderful weekend, and I really hope you enjoyed the conference as much as we did. So keep in touch, and we'll see you in 2019.